Hey guys, welcome back to a special one-off. We are doing an in-person The Jedi In Exile video. Welcome.
Mental.
I know, it's crazy times. We are really happy to be here together and talking to you about episode 3 of Kenobi. So we've done episode 2 and episode 1 came out last week. We know that Disney released the double header because it was going to be 2 days late. Yeah, remember guys, you can watch those videos. Remember to like and subscribe the page. You'll find all of our videos and everything. Right, that's the page plugged. Matthew, what did you think of episode 3?
So, I'm going to go out and say mind-blowing.
Yeah.
But also, I don't know, slightly confusing.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of backlash online about a few things that happened. But ultimately, I guess, much like every other episode, I've loved every second of it, and I've been completely
This is just what we wanted, wasn't it? When they did announce Rogue One, and when we got Solo, we were like, "Where's Kenobi?
Yeah,
where is Kenobi?" That's what we want, and we're now getting that. And I have heard rumours today that season 2 has been signed off because the premiere was Disney's highest viewing figures for a premiere.
Record breaking.
So, millions of people would have tuned in completely. I think this episode for me, it was really, really good. And like you say, I've read the people who are dissatisfied online. And don't get me wrong, it's Star Wars, so, you know,
We're Star Wars fans, we're fickle.
Star Wars fans don't like Star Wars, do they? And we're going to delve a bit more into that. But I have to say, my overarching view is that this is such a good series. And it's so good because we clearly cannot see the same Obi-Wan as what we've seen in the prequels.
Yeah,
that confident Jedi Master, confident in his abilities, you know. He will think in his mind that he is the reason for the Jedi being no more.
Yeah.
And that's why we keep hearing every episode, we hear Qui-Gon's voice saying, "Promise me you'll train the boy."
Mm-hmm.
So Obi-Wan clearly feels like it's his fault. And there is this recurring theme of Qui-Gon's voice. And it would be just like Disney to keep it quiet that Liam Neeson is in this.
Oh, well, we know that he's coming back for an animated show.
Yeah, the Tales of the Jedi. Yeah, really.
So there's every possibility that was only announced because they already know that he's back in this. You know,
and 100%. He has said that he would come back and wants to play Qui-Gon. Obviously, we know that Liam Neeson's had his falling out with Hollywood in the last sort of year, 18 months over a few comments. But no, that's the thing, that at the start of every episode, there's been Obi-Wan trying to talk to Qui-Gon, trying to hear something back. Obviously, we know that Qui-Gon has gone... he's not quite a Force ghost because he didn't complete his training, did he? But he can talk to Yoda, and we're waiting for him to talk to Obi-Wan. And I think that's a real defining moment in this series, will be if Qui-Gon's going to talk to Obi-Wan when he does it.
Yeah.
Because Obi-Wan at the moment is a shell of his former self.
100%.
And you kind of think, well, how is he going to survive when him and Vader inevitably have another fight? How is he going to defeat Vader? Because we know Vader in episode 4 says, "When I left you, I was but the learner." Mm-hmm. So that, in my mind, says Obi-Wan is going to school him.
Yeah, it needs to that's going to need to be addressed in some way.
Yeah, absolutely. And while we're on the subject of them fighting, for me, I understand why fans are underwhelmed by the duels. I get that. But I also understand why Disney are doing this, because we know that episode 4 was made in 1977. The lightsaber props weighed too much for them to do any acrobatic fighting.
And Alec Guinness's Obi-Wan was an old man.
Yeah, and so I think we need to be realistic in that they have to go from the Mustafar duel with the "it's over Anakin, I've got the high ground," that all those acrobatics, they have to somehow go from there to then Alec Guinness and David Prowse as Vader doing the fight. And so this is kind of the middle ground. So yes, I think we're not going to like these duels, but at the same time, I understand why they are and how they are. And I think we have to be a little bit, I wouldn't say respectful, we've got to be a little bit understanding. Of why Disney do this. Because if Obi-Wan was, you know, launching himself off the gravel and him and Vader were having this huge duel, we'd all be like, well, that's not realistic.
So I think it's difficult, right? And that I didn't criticise the fight, but being the voice of those fans, just for the sake of this conversation, I think you do need to kind of respect the fact that all of the stuff that came out, like Disney came out and said, expect prequel level dueling.
Yeah.
Now, we might get that from other characters, we don't know.
Yeah.
Because obviously the Inquisitors are kind of at the height of their power.
Yeah.
You know, there is every possibility that we see them face off against each other or you know, or what have you. We don't know what's going to come. So we might see something like that. The one thing that I would say is that I completely understand. You know, they have to transition from episode 3 to episode 4, and they have to make that believable.
Yeah.
And so therefore we need to see a gradual decline in kind of his ability and his fighting style and stuff. One thing that I would say that people didn't jump on and criticize was in episode 2, he quite clearly, and episode 2 of Kenobi, I mean, rather than Attack of the Clones, he clearly struggled to get himself into the right headspace to use the Force to save Leia.
Yeah.
And it's for exactly the same reason that he's going to be struggling to fight. He won't have
he chose to run from Vader.
He won't have fought with a lightsaber since he went into hiding.
Well, he's buried it in the desert probably after he handed Luke over to Owen and Beru.
So we it's completely understandable that would be the case. So
and that's where I think Qui-Gon ties into this, that there must be some kind of moment that hopefully we'll see in this series where Obi-Wan snaps from being the kind of down and out ex-Jedi into being Alec Guinness, who's very relaxed on Tatooine when we see him in episode 4. He's got his heart, he's got a life, like, I know his life is mainly looking after Luke, watching over him, but he just seems like a normal person in hiding, whereas he's so different to Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan at the moment.
He's on edge.
And I feel like there must be a moment that sparks Obi-Wan, and whether that is Qui-Gon talking to him and saying, you know, you've got a responsibility to Luke, you know, whatever it is. But again, I've got faith that this will be answered. That
100%. I think that would be my message to fans that are asking all of these questions is, we know that if they said 6 installments, I don't know if that is 6 episodes or whether they're classing episode 1 and episode 2 as a 1 and therefore 7 episodes. But we know that there are more episodes to come. We're halfway or just under halfway through. So there's time to explain things.
Absolutely.
And we don't know how long those episodes are either.
No.
This episode was again another 45 minutes.
I was about to say we've been really lucky. We've had the first one was like 56 minutes, wasn't it? The second one's 45, this one's 45. We are lucky because some of the Book of Boba Fett's and the Mandalorians have been like 30 minutes long.
Yeah.
So we are lucky that we're getting, we've had basically a feature-length movie of period of time so far,
100%.
and we've got another feature-length movie to go. I like there was a few teasers in this episode that I really liked. So I really liked how Obi-Wan, when he sees the hallucination of, like, he sees Anakin as Hayden Christensen. Really, really liked that.
Well, this is
because
this is what
when Hayden Christensen was announced.
But the whole point is, so he didn't know that he was alive.
Yeah.
And so in our heads we all go, oh well, we saw him get like picked up at Mustafar, put in the armor and all of that kind of stuff. Whereas Obi-Wan doesn't know that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's the thing for me. We see Anakin, and this is what we kind of wanted. When Hayden Christensen was announced, we're like, oh my God, there's going to be flashbacks. We're going to see him as Anakin.
Which also then comes back into the whole, when they've teased prequel level or prequel style duels, there's every possibility we get Clone Wars flashbacks, and therefore we see that. We just don't know.
Yeah, and that's the thing. There's so much in the unknown. So I really liked that as a bit of a teaser. I also liked how Obi-Wan was smiling when he sees that Quinlan Vos was helping, like, the Jedi younglings. He sees, and it's that quote, isn't it? Like, only when one closes their eyes, they see the way, or it was something along those lines. And I just thought it's interesting from when you've watched the animated series, The Clone Wars, that how Obi-Wan and Quinlan didn't. I think they respected each other, but they did things very differently. Didn't they?
So
they were two different ends of the Jedi Order.
Yeah, it's explored in Dark Disciple as well. Yeah. That as much as they did do things in very different ways. So Quinlan Vos was very much kind of Qui-Gon-esque in his approach to things in regards to kind of being quite rebellious. He had a lot of undercover assignments where he was kind of walking that line between the Jedi kind of ethical code and not, and that kind of grey area to get the job done. Whereas Obi-Wan was obviously very kind of by the book, as much as Qui-Gon had an influence on him to not always...
Obi-Wan was more by the book, wasn't he? Yeah, absolutely.
But they were definitely kind of, through all the novelizations, through the Clone Wars and stuff, friends, at the very least, very well respected, but between there was a lot of respect between them, and so that was nice. That was nice to see that.
I think that when we see Disney are really smart, because this gives them so many options in the future. When they tease characters like this, the people at Disney, the execs, are probably thinking, right, that's a Quinlan Vos series that we can do.
We were texting each other backwards and forwards after watching the episode, and my first thing to you was, Quinlan Vos loved that he got a shout out, and I said to you, spin off ? Because
absolutely, and that's Disney know what they're doing with that. There's so much they can go back to, isn't there? With just the little mention of people like, obviously we're getting the Andor series. He was in Rogue One.
Yeah,
there's so much that little characters that are dropped in where they take them out and make them a huge character. Like there's talk of people wanting the Poe Dameron series of before the sequels, how his his story coming up. Like, it's things like that where Disney can just make. There's so much content that can be made, isn't there, in the Star Wars universe?
Oh, massively.
It's just absolutely incredible. So those were a couple of things which I thought straight away were like a nice little teaser, because this episode, certainly with the series, has definitely moved on. You know how we've spoke about Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett. When we've done those reviews, we've said the first 2 or 3 episodes have been kind of slow.
Yeah. That
you didn't really feel like you were actually in the series until maybe 4 or 5. This one, the fact that obviously we get a little Obi-Wan Vader kind of, well, it is a duel, but whatever. We get that. We get Leia's now been taken by Reva. Reva as well. She's a very Marmite character at the moment, isn't she? There's a lot of people who really like her character.
Yeah.
A lot of people who don't like her. There's clearly this rival in the Inquisitors. Something I've noticed is all the Inquisitors seem to have the yellow eyes of like a Sith or a Dark Jedi, but she doesn't. She also makes quite a pained face when she sees the Jedi Order logo carved into the wood. And she also doesn't seem to like it when Vader snaps that person's neck. She kind of makes like a grimace.
Yeah.
So there's definitely something there.
I'm still going to go back to what I said last week. My theory is that she was one of the Padawans at the very start, because there has to be a reason that scene was in there, and it would fit and make a lot of sense.
Yeah, absolutely, and she's going to be key in this. So we see her quite a bit here. The whole, she's talking to Vader at the start of the episode. Vader is on his throne, which is insane. It's so good at Mustafar, which again is just, he's so dramatic, isn't he? It's
I love it.
The scene of where he's like, life was almost taken from him, or where Anakin Skywalker died and Darth Vader was born, and he's like, I'm going to build a big fuck off palace,
build a
on
palace,
top of a lava waterfall,
have a throne, and then in that scene after he's spoken to them, he walks over to the window, stares out, and he's just like, I'm a bad mutt.
It's incredible. I think this episode also taught us that the whole story of Star Wars, especially the originals and the sequels, is that everybody hates the Empire, and because everything's obviously seen from the Rebel Alliance, I think it's really key to distinguish in this period when the Jedi became almost extinct, and then the Empire rose, and obviously the Imperials take control of most planets. Not everybody hated the Empire.
Well, I think
that's really nice that we saw that Freck character.
Yeah, so I think it's really interesting because everything that we see it from the perspective of either the Imperials, who are obviously painted as the bad guys, and then the rebellion. And it would have been really easy to just focus this series around, so obviously Bail Organa was there, witnessed the atrocities, witnessed how everything kind of happened. But there are people on planets who their senators won't have been
they would have
exposed to that stuff, so they will have believed
that the Jedi tried to
turned.
assassinate.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that it shows that not everybody loved the Jedi, because the Jedi was so obviously it's a religion, and they were so closed off with, they didn't let obviously anybody in to really talk to them. The Jedi Temple was like this mystery place. So I think it was interesting for me that this series has done good, that they show that some people do actually like the Empire.
Oh,
there's nothing wrong with a bit of order.
Yeah,
Breck says.
Yeah, 100%. And I don't know how much more of that we will see, but it's nice because they didn't need to do that. There was absolutely no need for that to be the case. So I think it's good. I think, I might be wrong, but it sounded very much like it was Seth Rogen that did the voice of Freck. Now, I don't know because I haven't gone and checked.
Yeah, no, I've not, but it definitely sounded like him, yeah. Which wouldn't surprise me. If you're a celebrity, you want a
little cameo. Tiny little cameo, happy days.
But, yeah, I mean, there was a few points like that I've picked up on. What's something else which seemed really strange to me when I was watching it and listening to it, when Obi-Wan talks about his family. Obviously,
it's the first time we've heard any of this.
They've got the stormtroopers, haven't they, sitting with Obi-Wan and Luma, who obviously we know is Leia, and he talks about, her mother. He spins this kind of story to the stormtroopers that they're obviously father and daughter, and every time he looks at her, he sees her mother. And it's like, we know that he's telling the truth of that, and Leia then kind of realises he's speaking the truth, and is like, oh, you knew my real mother. And yeah, it's really just, it's quite poignant, the kind of relationship that Ben and Leia have got. Because sometimes he's really tough on her, like, oh, we shouldn't have come here, Leia, we've been betrayed, Leia. But then he's also got this softer side because he's like, I knew your mum and dad. Which
also then, this is where we talked, didn't we, last week about the kind of, the slightly strange way that the message had been with, Leia in A New Hope, if she'd met him before, that she didn't mention, something. But also
when Luke says I'm here with Ben Kenobi, she does make a massive reaction, and I've gone back and seen that and thought, yeah, you know what, okay.
But this also helps explain it a little bit more, because it shows that that Ben hasn't just been like, or Obi-Wan hasn't just been like, oh, here's some random person that's asking for my help, I'm going to go help them. Building of this relationship makes sense as to why he then went, right, let's go help her.
Yeah, absolutely. And he must know, I mean, one of the big things we've got to talk about is how powerful they've portrayed Vader in this as well, which we needed, because Vader in the original trilogy is not really seen as that powerful. The fact that Luke can overpower him with, again, hardly any training, etc. But Vader is so powerful, and they really show this in this episode. But the fact that Obi-Wan was willing to basically sacrifice his life so that Leia could get back to Alderaan. He says to that Talia, you've got to take her to Alderaan, promise me you'll take her. Because he thinks in his head, I'm going to die here. Like, Vader is going to kill me. But the whole Vader walking through the village, the fear he strikes in people, the snapping of the guy's neck, the forced choke, it was... I'd love to see a Vader series, and Hayden Christensen wants to see a spin-off of him hunting Jedi. Vader is the most powerful Sith that the Rule of Two era has probably had since Darth Bane, and people don't quite realise that. Even with the robotic arms and legs and all of that, he can't shoot Force lightning. He's incredibly powerful, and so it was nice to see a glimpse of that in this episode.
And we talked about the fact that we get a glimpse of that at the end of Rogue One.
Yes.
So it's obviously been acknowledged within the kind of creation sphere of Star Wars, and in the kind of, we said at that point he's kind of towards the height of his powers. So this is him ramping up to that. So 100% to kind of actually see the real potential. Anakin Skywalker was a feared Jedi during the Clone Wars, as in like super famous for all of the stuff that he did.
Yeah.
So just because he lost an arm and a leg doesn't necessarily mean that he loses all of that. So it's nice to see that carried on properly.
Absolutely. So, and I feel like it's almost like we're going to see that Darth Vader's arrogant because he's probably not been tested. And that's why I think Obi-Wan maybe will school him at some point, or something will happen. I really like the symbolism when Vader dragged Obi-Wan through the flames, as if to say, like, this is what you did to me.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it to you. As soon as he pulled him down onto the floor, I was like, oh my God, don't get his face, because that's like, you can't. And it was really cleverly done that Obi-Wan could just hold his head up. We can talk about the dramatic Vader instead of when Obi-Wan's getting rescued, instead of just lifting him up with a force or walking through the fire, Vader stands there looking dramatic. But I quite liked it. It's almost like he realises how weak Obi-Wan is, and he's like, I thought you'd put up more of a fight. I thought I'd feel better.
Yeah, like
get get your thoughts together.
The message is always kind of this whole you never get the satisfaction, do you? When you shouldn't seek revenge because you never get the satisfaction. And this, I think, kind of played into that a little bit.
Yeah,
it was definitely that whole kind of, and we're maybe making excuses for it. Might have been poor writing, or it might have been deliberate. We just don't know, and no one will ever know other than the people that wrote it and the people that sat down and they had those creative discussions. But 100%, I could see that being the case. I could see it being, he's looked and gone, like time's not been good to you.
No. Well, he says, doesn't he? He says the years have weakened you, and it's almost like what he says. You're an old man in episode 4. There's that joke going around. He's like, you're a middle-aged man, Obi-Wan. But no, I think the whole Vader, that whole scene, I think was actually brilliant. And I think the camera angles, I watched it again tonight just before we started filming, and when Obi-Wan gets his lightsaber out, you're not sure where Vader's going, and that is the camera jolting around as if you're in Obi-Wan's eyes.
So I saw criticisms from episode 1 of in the Order 66 scene, when the troopers start attacking, the camera starts shaking.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, oh yeah, because we all know
really that.
Yeah, so this is my thing. I think Deborah Chow has been absolutely incredible for episode 1, episode 2, episode 3. Yeah. She might ruin it for in the future episodes. I highly doubt it. Based on what we've seen, but it's been absolutely incredible. Not just kind of the way it's all been played out, but the attention to detail in these.
You, as the audience, you feel like you're with Obi-Wan, and because I was thinking like, oh Christ, Vader's going to appear behind him, or something, and try and slash down on him, and I was like, holy crap, this could happen. So you really feel like you're there, and you feel
uneasy.
You feel the fear. Yeah. You definitely feel the fear that Obi-Wan's got. And I liked as well that, again, this harks back to episode 4, when Vader is about to board the Millennium Falcon, when the Millennium Falcon's been brought in with a tractor beam, and he says, I feel a presence I've not felt since. So he can feel Obi-Wan's presence. Obi-Wan, when he feels, and he must feel sense Anakin, but clearly a warped Anakin, demented Anakin, because he's like,
it'll be similar to how he felt on Mustafar, right? Because he will have obviously experienced Anakin having turned.
Yeah, true. So he must know that this is his brother, his best friend. This is a distorted version of him, like an evil version, and that's why I think he then starts hyperventilating and thinking, oh my god.
But also, I guess thinking they found me.
Yeah.
Because the one thing that he's been trying to avoid for however long.
Yeah. Which he knew kind of by coming out. I think that was his big thing when Bale asked him to find Leia. He knew that by going out and finding Leia that he was probably going to reveal himself. Yeah, absolutely. I think that this episode was just so cool. I'm just seeing if there's anything else I wanted to talk about. It was just such a really... We got so much from this episode. And we keep saying it, every time we watch a Kenobi episode, we're like, there was so much to gain from it. But there truly was in this episode, because Leia has been taken by Reva now, so what's going to happen to her and Reva? Are they going to form some kind of, I wouldn't say bond, but a kind of relationship?
Yeah, I mean there's every possibility that...
Because if Leia meets Vader, Vader must surely sense something in Leia.
Well, you would think, but there's every... Well, you say that, but then he meets her in A New Hope.
Yeah, that's true, and doesn't sense
it. So I just don't know. But the maybe he's blinded by the fact that he was obviously told that the kids didn't make it, right? Yeah. But there's every possibility. We always look at this and we always go how is the older person going to potentially influence the younger person? There's every possibility that if there is a redemption arc going on for Reva here, which we don't know if there is, there's hints that maybe there is, maybe there's not. If there is a redemption arc, maybe this kind of interaction with Leia and engagement with Leia is what's going to trigger that a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was nice from, just speaking about Reva, we saw the Inquisitor base again, which we saw in the game Jedi Order, Fallen Order.
Yeah.
Which again was just quite a nice, when you see the whole operation when she lands. I'm surprised we didn't see the Grand Inquisitor this episode,
or some explanation of what was happening.
Because he's been stabbed, and we're like, is he dead? Because we've seen a Grand Inquisitor in Rebels, but is this why? And everybody kicked off about how the Inquisitor looked in this one.
Yeah.
How he was so different to the Rebels.
Yeah.
Animated Grand Inquisitor. So does this explain it that there's a different Grand Inquisitor who happens to be the same species? So I don't know. There's a lot more that, and I'm confident they'll explain it. That's what I love. Is I'm so confident that I'm going to find out the answer to probably most of my questions, if not all. And it's just I just got to wait.
Yeah. So I guess just picking up on that point before we move on to the whole kind of getting onto scoring and what we think's coming. We were chatting beforehand, and I kind of said to you that in the comics there's this whole thing where Luke goes and finds an old temple, and the ghost of the Grand Inquisitor is essentially protecting it, and it's the whole kind of concept of in Rebels when he dies. He gets he says the line, "There are some fates or some things worse than death," and he goes away and he becomes. There's a formal term for it. I couldn't tell you what it is, but there's chat online about it. I assumed
when I watched that clip, I took that meaning to be I failed Lord Vader. Like this is I'm going to throw myself into the fire, into the explosion, so that I don't have to meet Vader's wrath. That's what I took it as.
Yeah, but so there's a scene in the comics where Luke goes to this temple, and essentially it's like it's like he's like a Force ghost, but like an evil Force ghost that can still interact. So he actually fights Luke. They have a duel, and there's theories that actually the one in Rebels is that as well of this Grand Inquisitor who died at this point.
Yeah.
So there's theories cutting about. I'm like you. There's a lot of TV shows that I watch, not necessarily Star Wars related, that I sit and I go, really wish that they're gonna, or like, I want to know what happens here. I want to know what happens here. You get to the end of the series and you go, I've still got so many questions. Yeah. I feel like stuff's gonna get explored and explained. And the one thing that is great is if it doesn't, we already know that they're working on season 2.
Yeah, and I think that's really important, is that it's not all going to be summed up probably in this series. So we've got 3 episodes left. We're clearly probably going to have the big Vader Obi-Wan fight, you'd think, and then season 2 might be a different story arc. But I'm confident we're going to get the answers. So for me, this episode actually gets, what did I give the last episode? A 9.9, didn't I?
9.5, I think.
No, I think you gave a 9.5. I gave a 9.9.
Oh, you gave a 9.9.
I need to go another 9.9. I can't handle it. It's not quite a 10 yet. I feel like episode 6 is going to be the 10.
This is the really exciting thing for us, and we said this when we did our Book of Boba Fett thing. Yeah. We scored the first episodes really highly, but I actually don't look back on last week's and go, having given it a 9.5, I wish I'd given it lower, because this took that level and maintained it. Yeah. So I'm going to give it a 9.5 again.
Yeah.
And I honestly, truly believe that we will build to a 10.
Yeah.
I feel like it is coming.
And we could get, depending on how long these other episodes are, there's so much more to come. So we talk about predictions. So they're on this planet, Maputo, the mining.
Something like that.
Because Obi-Wan's been there before. I don't know whether we've seen it in Clone Wars or something, because Obi-Wan seems to reminisce about how the land was all like, it was a big forest and the Empire's like chopped all the trees down. But they've shut down the spaceports. Reva's killed the pilot that was going to get Obi-Wan and Leia off-world. Talia's gone back to help Obi-Wan with the big droid that people are saying is Wrecker from the Bad Batch. Maybe inside, because he doesn't act like a robot when he's got the hammer in his hand behind his back. Yeah. So that's just a little thing that people are like...
Interesting. I hadn't seen that theory.
Which I did think was really interesting.
I don't think that's likely, but it would be pretty cool if it was.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And again, the Dave Filoni spiderweb blinking up.
Yeah.
So, but we look at next episode, it feels like everything's going to happen on this planet. This is going to be like Mustafar 2.0. So I'm really intrigued to see. Obi-Wan's injured. He's got his whole arm and shoulder looks completely burnt. So he's going to need a Bacta tank or something. He's with this Talia. Leia's with Reva. Vader's still on the planet with a garrison of stormtroopers with the Inquisitors.
We've been introduced to the path. Is that what it was called? The path or the way?
Obi-Wan says,
whole network of kind of them helping other Jedi and other people escape. Yeah. So is it possible that if Reva's now killed the pilot of this ship, that she knows where the ship was heading, that we're going to see that explored a little bit more?
I think that's really good, because we kind of felt like from watching the originals that Yoda and Obi-Wan were the last of the Jedi, and then Luke becomes obviously the last Jedi. But it's nice to know that when Obi-Wan and Yoda attack the temple in episode 3 to redivert the thing, that Obi-Wan says, we've got to do this, because otherwise Jedi are going to walk into a trap. There could be hundreds of Jedi that have been saved because of this. And so I really like that idea. And again, I think we're going to get a series about these other Jedi that have escaped.
100%.
Obviously, Yoda and Obi-Wan are the highest ranking members who survived. But we don't know, there could be not others who are that high, but Jedi that are well known, like Quinlan Vos, we know is alive. But it's all these people who they maybe link into the originals, like Rex. Rex attacks the shield generator base in Return of the Jedi. They fought that far ahead that there's an old guy with a grey beard, and they're like, that's Rex. And they make this whole thing about how Rex talks to Luke about his father serving in the Clone Wars, like Anakin Skywalker, not talking to him as Darth Vader. He talks to him about Anakin. I just think things like that, they'll pick someone out and say, whether that's Quinlan Vos or whoever, that... Because in our eyes, we'd be like, well, why aren't they in the originals? Surely they would have helped the Rebel Alliance. There's going to be a reason why.
Oh, 100.
Like Ahsoka, prime example.
Yeah, I mean, we that, and not just the Rex piece there, but like Quinlan Vos is the perfect example of somebody who, in the Phantom Menace, is sat in a room or like at a table. He's got the yellow paint across his face. He's got his hood up, and he was literally just a single character. And then they went, this guy, we're going to create a backstory for him. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And he became this big character. And so they do it with loads of stuff. It's going to be really interesting to see what they do with it all.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so it's a nice conclusion to the video.
100%.
I was so excited. I'm really excited that we've been able to do this.
Oh, it's been great.
So, guys, let us know in the comments what you thought of the video. Remember, obviously, as we said at the start, remember to like, subscribe, share this video out, tell all your friends, and obviously comment, do you think the same as us? What do you think we're heading for in episodes 4, 5 and 6? Is there anything you're disappointed with that we've missed? Anything you're excited about that we've missed? Please do let us know.
Oh, 100%, guys. We love hearing from you, and it helps us create better content for you.
So. Absolutely. So thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.